Well, unfortunately, today's NASCAR Cup Series race at New Hampshire has been postponed to tomorrow. But it does give us the opportunity today to talk about some NASCAR news. And there has been some speculation, rumors in the Supercars paddock about the future of one of their drivers. You may be wondering, this is a NASCAR video. This is a NASCAR channel mainly. Why are we talking about Australian Supercars? Well, if you remember, which I'm assuming most of you do, Supercars driver Shane Van Gisbergen just a few weeks ago won in his first Cup Series start at the Chicago Street Race. Chicago Street Race was a brand new track for NASCAR. NASCAR had never done a street race before. It was in the rain, so Shane Van Gisbergen really shined in the conditions and at that racetrack and won in his first career start, as I said. Well, now down in Australia, there has been more rumors and speculation about his future in terms of NASCAR connecting to NASCAR. He talked about after the race how he would maybe consider doing a full-time NASCAR season, but not this year because he's in the middle of his Supercar season, and not even next year, but maybe 2025. Well, that has suddenly escalated, and he may be looking at a full-time NASCAR gig next year. That is what the rumors and reports are saying in Australia. So here's this article. Jamie Whincup says he's yet to formally rediscuss 2024 with superstar Shane Van Gisbergen, but is planning to do so imminently. SVG is contracted to Supercars powerhouse 888 for next year, but speculation has been rife that he may depart at season's end to pursue a full-time NASCAR career. By Sunday night in Townsville, many in the Supercars paddock were tipping this to be SVG's final Supercars season. Pre-event, the Kiwi had reiterated his intentions to still be in Australia next year despite his phone running hot since his win on Cup Series debut in Chicago. He did, however, note he would catch up with Whincup regarding the 888 team principal's public declaration that he won't stand in the way of any 2024 opportunities that come Van Gisbergen's way. According to Whincup, the discussion hadn't happened as of Sunday night, but is high on the agenda. So yeah, it seems like the speculation, the anticipation or something is that SVG could be coming to the USA full-time next year. Now, the Cup Series NASCAR schedule ends at the early part of November on the 5th. The Supercars schedule ends similar time frame 3 weeks later on the 26th of November. So it would be a similar season calendar-wise. I think Supercar starts in March, goes through the end of November. NASCAR starts at the end of February, goes through early November. So it's a similar schedule. Obviously, much different time zone, different cars, and a different style of racing. As I said earlier in this video, SVG, he shined at the Chicago Street Course because Supercars, they are very similar to the Cup Series car, especially the next-gen car, which has some components of the Supercars. It's a street course, which SVG has experience on, and not a lot of NASCAR Cup Series drivers have that experience. And also the wet conditions, SVG has a lot of experience on, whereas the NASCAR drivers have not a lot of experience, just a few experiences over the past couple of years. So SVG really shines in that type of format. So if there's more street courses, that's going to be great for him. But with a lot of road courses being in the Cup Series now, 6 or 7, that's also going to play to his advantage. Even with tracks like Watkins Glen, Sonoma, Coda, more natural road courses, like purpose-built road courses versus a street course. But then the question would be, how would he do on the ovals? Because the majority of the NASCAR schedule is still ovals. You got the super speedways like Daytona and Talladega. You got the intermediates like Texas, Las Vegas, Kansas, and then you got short tracks like Martinsville, Bristol, Richmond. So how would he do on each of those tracks? And also it would depend on where he went. So let's discuss the potentials of where he could go. Now, I'm assuming that the Cup Series is going to be his destination just because he showed up in his first Cup Series start and won. I don't think he's going to be looking to build his way to the Cup Series when he is 100% win percentage in the Cup Series. I would expect him to be aiming high for his seat. And the question would be, where would he go? He won with Trackhouse in the Project 91 car. Trackhouse currently has 2 full-time cars, both occupied with multi-year deals by Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez. So those 2 cars he couldn't take. But if Trackhouse was able to somehow obtain a charter. Maybe they could put him in a third charter car, or they could put him in a third car full time, but on an open basis. For those of you who don't know the charter system, there are 36 charters in the Cup Series. A charter guarantees you a spot in the race every single week. If you are an open car and let's say there's 45 cars qualifying, only 40 make the cut. If you have a charter, you can qualify 45th. You're still in the race because you have that charter. But if you qualify 41st and you don't have a charter, tough luck. You're an open car, you're out. So the charter is very important to Cup Series teams because of the monetary value. Over the past couple of years, the charter value has skyrocketed, with them being north of $20 million to buy a charter. Trackhouse, when they bought Chip Ganassi Racing, I think they paid $30 million maybe for the charters. And, ever since then, they've been... So if Trackhouse doesn't want to buy a charter, maybe they could try an open car, but that's the only possibility I could see with him staying at Trackhouse, would be if they either just run a full-time open car and take the risk of him missing a race. Now, not every race has 40 cars. Sometimes we just have 36, so those weeks would be perfect, but the Daytona 500 usually has 42 or 43 entries. So you'd have to qualify in speed or make it through the duels. Now, other openings in the Cup Series, I'm assuming he's going to want to be in a semi-competitive car. So I think Rick Ware Racing is probably going to offer him, but Rick Ware Racing is not fast. They are one of the bottom teams in the Cup Series. They get a top 10 maybe on a super speedway when everyone's wrecked out, but other than that, when they don't have backing from a RFK or a SHR, they just don't have the speed. So I wouldn't expect him to go there unless that was his only option. Same thing goes for Live Fast Racing. But then we get kind of more mid-pack. The Legacy Motor Club entries are already taken. RFK entries are already taken. But then we get to Stewart-Haas Racing. Stewart-Haas Racing is an interesting case because I don't know what SVG's contracts are. I believe he races with a Chevrolet in the Supercars, and obviously he was with the Chevrolet team in Trackhouse. But would he go to a Ford team? SHR is an interesting place right now. SHR used to be one of the best teams in the Cup Series. They were championship contenders year after year, but they've been on the decline the past few years. Their best driver, Kevin Harvick, is retiring at the end of the year, and they are in a desperate need of a revamp. Harvick's been the only one consistently performing there. He's top 10 in points. He's contending for wins every once in a while the other ones are in the 20s in points and maybe squeak out a top 10 every once in a while. So would SVG be willing to go there because there is an open spot as of now? The 14 car is taken by Chase Briscoe. The 4 car has just been signed by Josh Berry. And the 41 has Ryan Preece, but I'm not sure how long that deal is. That leaves the number 10 car. Eric Almirola has been in that car since 2018. He has had the sponsorship to back him. Smithfield has funded that car, helped Stewart-Haas Racing financially. But it's been weird with Eric Almirola. He announced last year that it was going to be his last year. That 2022, that was it. At the end of 2022, he was done. Then mid-season, he said, actually, I'm coming back next year. But after that, who knows? So the 10 car, no one knows what's going to happen with it. Is Smithfield going to kind of beg Almirola to stay for sponsorship reasons, or Stewart-Haas Racing maybe? Is Almirola still enjoying himself? I mean, Almirola hasn't been that competitive this year outside of Atlanta, so if he's not competitive and not having fun, why would he stay? So if Almirola opts to retire, actually, I think that could be a potential landing spot for Shane Van Gisbergen. The 10 car, it's an opening right now, I would say. Almirola, there's no guarantee if he stays in that car or if he retires. I don't think there's a middle ground. I think he either retires or he stays. So that could be a potential opportunity for Shane Van Gisbergen if he wanted to try out the Stewart-Haas car. Half of the team is owned by Gene Haas, who owns an F1 team, so he's internationally known in the motorsports world. Tony Stewart's a NASCAR champion, a 3-time NASCAR Cup Series champion as a driver, Hall of Famer. So you've got a lot of connections there, and if this seat's open, I think that's a possibility. But once again, it's all up to Almirola. What does Almirola do? What does Smithfield do? How do they influence each other, and how does this affect Stuart Haas's decision? And then obviously, sponsorship. What sponsorship can SVG bring over? Next up, I'm going to talk about Joe Gibbs Racing. I think this is a very long shot, but we do have to discuss it. 2 openings currently technically at Joe Gibbs Racing. The 54 is taken up by Ty Gibbs. That's Joe Gibbs' grandson. And the 20 car taken by Christopher Bell on a multi-year deal. Joe Gibbs is going to do anything he can to keep Bell there for the rest of his career. But that leaves the 11 and 19 car. Denny Hamlin has been at Joe Gibbs Racing his entire career and is currently in a contract year. He's currently in discussions with Joe Gibbs Racing. It is moving along slowly, but it is moving along. It was reported about a month ago that FedEx, the primary sponsor of that car, plans on extending with Joe Gibbs Racing, but it has not been signed. It is not a done deal yet. So technically there is the possibility something falls through and it's not happening. It seems like FedEx has kind of backed off in terms of their NASCAR sponsorship. They used to sponsor each and every race. Now we see sports clips on the car, Interstate batteries on the car. This week it's like Mavis tires and brakes. So FedEx has definitely lowered the amount, but I think they still plan to be the primary on the car. Maybe not all 36, but 20 to 25, let's call it. I expect that deal to finish. I expect Denny Hamlin into the 11. But then the next one is Martin Truex Jr. in the 19. Truex seems to be enjoying himself this year. He was a free agent last year. There was speculation that he was going to retire. Then he signed. He never announced his retirement, but he just one day said, I'm going to stay. I'm going to sign a 1-year deal, and we'll see how it goes. Truex this year is having a much better year. He's got a couple of wins. He's been leading laps consistently up front. He seems like he's having fun again. I expect him to stay in that car. But in the case that either Truex or Hamlin or FedEx, something falls through, would Joe Gibbs Racing be able, or would they be willing to take the gamble on SVG? I'm not sure, honestly. I don't think they would. They're one of the top teams in NASCAR. I think they would want someone who is more accustomed to the NASCAR racing style in terms of the ovals. I think for a big team like Joe Gibbs Racing, it's just too big of a risk. I know SVG's 1-for-1 in the Cup Series, but you got to look at the factors. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic drive, but you have to factor in that it was at a street course, which is his style compared to the rest of the guys in the Cup Series, and the rain conditions also helped him a ton. Now, don't get me wrong, he was fast. The raw pace was there, but when it comes to the ovals, we don't know how he's going to do. And a team like Joe Gibbs Racing, who expects to have all 4 teams in the playoffs, I don't think they're going to take that risk. So I don't think that's a realistic shot, even if they were to sign him or he were to be on top of their list. I don't think they would do it. So I think SHR is most realistic right now because SHR is going this way. They need to change something. They got to try something different, swing for the fences. They missed out on some big free agents over the past 3 or 4 years. They missed out on Kyle Busch last year. They missed out on Kyle Larson 3 years ago. They've missed out on some big-time talent, and the way it's going for SHR, you can't really miss. Like, if he doesn't work out, so what? You're already going downhill. It kind of just is going downhill with you. So I think SHR, if they're willing to take that gamble, they should. SVG, he's shown that he can win in the Cup Series in his 1 start. You're going to go to the road course with a big circle on him, but I don't see why not. Other long shot possibilities, Penske only has 3 cars. If they wanted to get a 4th charter, maybe, but I don't see that happening. Let me think. I mean, maybe Penske, but once again, I don't think it'll happen. I think the most realistic options, Trackhouse opens a 3rd team full-time and makes the Project 91 a 4th car as a part-time, or SHR. If I'm forgetting any teams, NASCAR fans, let me know in the comments. But we talked a lot about SVG on this channel over the past couple of months, the NASCAR Cup Series winner. But yeah, 888, his current team, I guess they have some speculation that he could very well leave, the 3-time Supercars champion for NASCAR in 2024. So we'll see what ends up happening. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the post-race review of New Hampshire.